So, like many of the experts around the world, when we go to look at areas or topics or things like that, sometimes it can take a while before we get to know what impact there are, or we've got to wait for the experts to weigh in because they've got to take time and look at it, this themselves. And one of the big questions is what is the details in this Australian trade deal? We don't know. We do know that there is going to be a phasing out of tariffs over the next 15 years, not just for meat, but for things like sugar and a lot of other agricultural products. Sugar, for example, will get phased out in 8 years. And this is going to have a lot of potential trouble for us down the road because this sets precedent for other countries expecting the same thing. So while we might say give Australia tariff-free access, other countries will want the same thing. And that then creates huge other problems. And one of the biggest problems is that because we have a current Tory party in charge who are basically free market fundamentalists who do not care because they want absolutely 0% tariffs because, again, it's based on the old imperial nostalgia model where, again, Britain had quote 0% tariffs, but again it wasn't true because we had our colonies which again weren't allowed to trade with anyone else except Britain, and then Britain could essentially send all these take the raw materials, be processed in Britain, and then the finished goods would be sent back. Had basically complete dominance over these markets. Again, they forget that was a thing back then. We might have had 0% tariffs, but that was a thing. And that's what made us so successful because we had all these colonies in that imperial preference system, and they don't seem to understand that. And that now today, that very system of just going 0% tariffs, no regulation, it quote, should somehow work, forgets that no country really does that. Because again, this has economic consequences on your population, and they are damned to the consequences. Even businesses that might close, to them, well, that's just part of the free market. If you can't innovate and survive, well, so be it. The market to them is all. So today we are going to go over some expert analysis of what they think the potential impacts of an Australian trade deal is. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you so much to all the people who do support me that way. And as always, on with today's article. So, this comes from The Independent. The title is Australia to enjoy export boost 6 times greater than from the UK, trade expert says.
And here we've had to negotiate very hard, and I want everybody to understand.
Oh wait, there we go. But yeah, not surprising because that's what we've been saying right from the start about this. But anyway, let's get on with it. So, Australia will enjoy exports boost 6 times greater than the UK from the very controversial trade deal agreed between the two countries, experts say. UK sales will grow by just 0.35% from the agreement, the UK Trade Policy Observatory, or UKTPO, forecasts, compared with a 2.2% jump for Australian businesses. So straight away, we get 0.35%, which again is nothing, to Australia's 2.2%, which is a considerable jump in terms of trading potential and doing business. Its analysis also predicts a very puny output increase for the UK of 0.07%, less than half of the 0.16% current stimulus predicts for Australia. These are very small numbers, Professor Michael Gorstick said, the director of the observatory at the University of Sussex said, adding, that we will see a bigger positive effect for Australia than for the UK. The conclusions came after the government admitted that the average household will just get £1.20 a year be better off from the deal, which would boost GDP by only 0.02% over 15 years. Again, that's nothing. The professor also warned that the agricultural trade with the EU could slump by more than any increase with Australia if relaxing rules on food standards triggers a clash with Brussels. Again, that's going to have another big impact. Announcing the deal last week, Trade Secretary Liz Truss repeatedly refused to guarantee that meat treated with antibiotics or pesticides will continue to be barred. Australia uses 16 times more antibiotics for poultry farming than Britain, allowing farmers to crowd animals together to make meat cheaper despite criticism of such conditions. Ducking questions about antibiotics, Truss accused critics of demanding regulatory harmonisation and saying only, "We are not lowering our food import standards as a result of this deal." But the professor also warned liberalising agriculture may set a precedent with regard to future agreements, for example with the US, and it remains to be seen what has been agreed with regards to food standards. Allowing the imports of foodstuffs with different standards to that of the EU may very well cause further difficulties for the operation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. But if prevented an agreement with Brussels to ease the Irish sea checks, it could reduce the UK agricultural trade with the EU more than it could increase with Australia, he said. The body also said that modelling for the impact in trade in 148 industries and sectors concludes that the economic boost is tiny because Australia is far away. Its economy is small and tariff levels are low to start with. Economically, the deal remains a poor substitute for trade lost with the European market due to Brexit, the professor added. He also warned that the crucial details on service, digital trade, public procurement and all rules of origin actually remain to be sorted out, with the deal very unlikely to be wrapped up until the autumn. The deal has already alarmed farmers because of the controversial pledge of the 15 years protection tariffs, which will be scrapped immediately or on imported lamb and beef. There is also anger that MPs will not, as the Independent revealed, be allowed to scrutinise the text until the autumn, when they will fear it will be far too late. Meanwhile, the government announced negotiations will begin with the 11-member Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP, with the UK as a view to joining. Ministers insist that the Australian deal is the first step to the greater prize of this Pacific Partnership, which boasts up to 500 million people and a joint GDP of over £9 trillion. However, economists have also cast similar doubt on the gains on offer, given the UK already has or will have separate trade deals with 7 of the 11 countries, including Japan, Canada and Singapore. So already, this does not look good at all in any way, shape or form. And remember, Brexit, according to some, conservatives, this was what Brexit was all about, getting these trade deals. But the thing is, no one in the UK, and at least no MPs or even prime ministers, have ever really been honest about what sometimes trade actually can mean to the people, public and businesses at large. Yes, trade is a good thing. And I'm not saying, we stop trade. Trade is a good thing. But the problem is, you've got to worry and protect your domestic markets because that's where your jobs come from. If you start to lose jobs because of a trade deal, or maybe there's a lack of trade going out to maybe your closest partners, for example, or what were our closest partners in the EU, and again, that ain't going to change because, again, trade gravity is an observable fact. That will cause us huge problems down the line. And this is one of these things where I worry that the Conservatives are going to try and kick the can down so much. Like, we've got the thing for 15 years. But we've already had worries that apparently in Cambria, they've already said that, no, that's going to be not in effect from day one. That there's going to be no tariffs from day one. So that is something to incredibly worry about, because we saw just a couple of weeks ago about how Australia, the Australian trade minister at the time, was saying, yeah, if this deal isn't right for us, we're going to walk. Because here's the thing, Australia does not need this trade deal. Yeah, it's a good trophy for them to have, but overall, they don't need it because they've got other countries with closer relations and better trade deals to do in their area. We're halfway around the world. This ain't benefiting us. You've seen the numbers. We've just gone through them. But of course, again, this is part of the whole Brexit mantra. Again, how long this will keep hold, we don't know. But of course, once the public really learns the true costs of what this actually means and how good we actually had it inside the EU, I think there is going to be a very significant outcry. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you so much to all the people who do support me that way. And as always, we'll see you all next time.